Hey guys, brand new podcast. I want to let you know that we have great new footwear available at freewaters.com. They are house shoes. Leanne calls them house shoes. I don't know what Freewater calls them. She calls them the greatest ever house shoes ever made. We've got machine and mechanic. That's right. Ladies and men's. All you got to do is go to freewater.com. I think they're almost sold out. But if you are just hearing this, run over there and see if they've got your size. They are amazing. These are the house shoes I wore every day on the cabin as my house shoe. So when we shot the my show, The Cabin, is streaming right now on Netflix. Go to Netflix and watch The Cabin. It is awesome. It is awesome. And I can say that because I'm in it very little. I have all my hilarious friends on there: Joey Diaz, Tom Segura, Nikki Glazer, Bobby Lee, Donnell Rollins, Anthony Anderson, Joel McHale, Kaylee Cuoco, Miss Pat, Big J Okerson, Dion Cole, Fortune Feemster, Fluffy. I keep calling him just Fluffy. Gabriel Iglesias. I'm very proud of the show. I hope you enjoy it. But like I was saying, I wore these Freewater shoes every day on set at the cabin because it was freezing. We shot it in January. And man, I wore the fuck out of these shoes. And they are still like brand new. They are still like brand new. And we just came out with these new set of house shoes that have a little artwork in the center and that Leanne is going through the roof for. And she is buying them for everyone for Christmas. I think if you throw in your order right now, you will get them by Christmas. I can't promise that, but I'm almost pretty certain that that's why we did it at this time frame. So treat yourself. Go to freewaters.com and get yourself some house shoes. Also, my Hot Summer Nights tour continues through November 6th and 7th. I'm in San Francisco and Sacramento, roughly Sacramento. I think it's Burlingame, respectively. November 20th. I'm in Reno. November 20th and 21st, I'm in Reno. Those are socially distanced indoor events. So it's half the capacity, but they're going to be amazing. I haven't been indoors now in forever. It seems like a lifetime. So I can't wait to do those. And then on the 28th, I am in Escondido down in San Diego. I have a big surprise for the Escondido show, the early show. A huge fucking surprise. Huge surprise. And we've added a show there. I think we've added it. I am not sure if it's up on my Bert.com. I am sorry the podcast is late this week. I have been overwhelmed. We got off tour. I did a show last night with Tom Segura at I keep saying the Hollywood Bowl, at the Rose Bowl. Me, Tom Segura, Christina Pajinski, Dave Williamson, and Jay Leno did a show last night at the Rose Bowl. It was amazing. It was so fucking great. It was so fun to do. I had a blast. Thank you for everyone coming out. I've got a video that will release probably today. You're getting this today. The podcast is late. We have been backed up with content, promoting the cabin. I did Conan on Tuesday. Shout out to Conan. Thank you so much for having me on. That was a fucking blast. I've been doing interviews every day. It's been just a tad bit overwhelming. So thank you for your patience on and getting the podcast a little late. New Two Bears, One Cave is up. It's with Ryan Sickler. It is awesome. I refuse to listen to it because I think it might be better than the ones we do. And then there'll be a new one with me. No, I think new one next week is with Tim Dillon. I think we got another one with Tim. I think the Dobbs trying to get me the fuck out of that podcast. But Tim Dillon's absolutely murdering it. And I will be dead honest with you. When we started Two Bears, One Cave, our motto was like every other week. We didn't want to overwhelm ourselves. And then when the pandemic clicked in, we were like, yeah, man, we're here. Let's just do every week. And then when I started touring, it became a little difficult for us to do as much as I was touring this last run and with promoting the cabin, it became a little tough. And so thank you to Tim Dillon and Ryan Sickler and even Bobby Lee. Bobby Lee was on an episode, and those are great episodes. And listen, I think that's the cool thing about podcasting is it's always fluid. It's always fun. And all we want you to do is like it. All we want you to do is like it. So I'm glad everyone is absolutely loving Ryan Sickler more than they love me. I get it. No. But Tim Dillon's next week before the election. My birthday is November 3rd on the election. Hey, how about this? Take a second from burning down your village and calling your parents and berating them for their politics and wish me happy birthday. Oh my God. Last night's show was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. I had a fucking blast. I had a real fucking blast. Thank you to Tom Segura for coming out and agreeing to do a show with me. It was amazing. We did a meet and greet on the back of a golf cart that I think Tom will never forget. Oh, I don't have my phone. I have the greatest goddamn picture of Tom on the back of a golf cart that defines the way we see the world. I look at this as fucking amazing. And Tom's like, what the fuck are we doing on a golf cart? It was an amazing night. It was an amazing, amazing, amazing night.
You gave your address out to about 2,000 people.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Don't remember that. I was a little buzzed at the end of the night. I didn't, by the way, I saved my drink until the machine story. When Tom got on stage, that might've been the funnest part of the night, is me and Tom fucking around on stage. But thank you everyone who came out. It was amazing. I think I've promoted everything I need to promote, right? Yeah.
Yeah. DC's special.
Oh, so today's guest is DC Benny. Now me and Bill Burr are going to have DC on our podcast because both of us have known DC for probably now. I've known him as long as I've been doing comedy. He was literally, and I don't know if I go in, I know I go into probably a little detail on this, but I don't think I share enough detail to say DC Benny defined destroying on stage for me. He defined what it was like to murder, to kill. DC would have them rattling. The room would be rattling. When you ever understand what it's like to go on stage after DC Benny and have the room be vibrating. I mean, when I say a murderer, he was so tight. And he's got a special out that is exactly this. When you say jokes per minute, I sorry, Halston, I'll lower my volume so you don't hear those pings. Everyone's like, did I just get an email? When I did Secret Time, it's a very New York thing, but I wanted my jokes per minute to be very high. I wanted laughs per minute to be very high in the first like 10. I literally did that special in a way that I went, this got to be very New York, like rapid fucking fire, little flutter punches into the stomach where they don't even realize they can't breathe. And then I did that special where I was like, and closer at 22 minutes. And so that people continue watching the rest of the special, because I knew there was a drop off at 30. When I say that is a distinct New York style. That is DC Benny. That is a guy that I watched in my formative years, my first 6 months of comedy. And I tell him this, I didn't realize how good he was. I didn't realize all the things he was doing on stage until I got older in comedy. And it was like, God damn it, man. He could do what we try to do now with storytelling seamlessly. And it didn't even seem like a story. He was doing jokes, but it didn't even seem like a story. It was like this big, it was amazing. It really was amazing. And no one was telling stories in these New York rooms at the time. This was set up punch. This was, you got to remember, this is like Dave Attell, Jim Norton, set up punch. You know what men or women, like not that's a bad example, men and women, but I was thinking about this Attell joke the other day. He used to say, by the way, that's how great Dave Attell is. Even in talking about another comic, I end up going back to how great Dave Attell is. A lot of comics say men and women are different. Men and women are different. Well, I'd like to point out their similarities. The men and women are very similar when they're on fire. It's not, hey, my vagina's on fire, put me out. Oh, I want to be put out and taken shopping. It's help, I'm burning to death. But you got to remember, that's the style of New York at the time. And DC has this new special, Adrift in Predicament. Stories of a shoulda known better. Stories of a drift in predicament. We released it on All Things Comedy, and it is awesome. It is fucking awesome, and it is who DC is. And DC is we talk about this a little bit. I tried to leave a little. This was a tough interview because I didn't want to go into too depth because I knew that Bill and I are talking to him, I think, next week, and I wanted to make sure that I had enough. We had enough to talk about on that, so you weren't listening to 2 interviews, because I know I've done that before. Where like I've had people that have been on Rogan on my show, and then I just ask them all the questions Rogan asked them. And then people are like, why the fuck would I listen to this? I should have listened to Rogan. I wanted to make sure that we had 2 different interviews because I want as many people to go to this special as possible. With all these comics releasing specials on YouTube, Mark Norman, Joe List, Sam Morrell, all these guys are New York comics influenced by guys like DC Benny. And so I want to make sure everyone sees this special. So if you have a moment this weekend, or if you do not want to deal with the election and you've already voted and you want it to just shake out and come out in the wash, take a minute and enjoy some stand-up comedy, some amazing stand-up comedy with great stories, great characters, and amazing jokes all throughout it. This special is that good. I really, honestly, I was listening this morning. I listened the other day, started listening. I was like, I don't want to listen too much. And then this morning I got up and I was hit play and I was in the pool, just kind of smiling. It's that good. So I think that's it. I think is that a good enough intro? I think so. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, my guest for the Bertcast this week, stand-up comedian, DC Benny.
He's the man, the myth, the legend, the fucking machine.
What's up, buddy?
Oh, it is so good to talk to you, man. It is so good to talk to you.
Bert in the house, man. It's been a long time, bro.
It's been a really long time. I'm listening to your special this morning, and can I tell you the biggest? I literally am sitting there making coffee, and I went. I only really got to see you do stand up when I was brand new at stand up. So everything you did was a magic trick to me. Like every tool in your tool belt was just overwhelming. It's almost like going and getting. Like going and having a great, really nice meal, but being a homeless person and saying, and like, no, this is great. It's fucking awesome. I'll take more. As after now having done stand up for 21 years or whatever, I'm listening to your special and I'm going, oh my God, his stand up is so thick with fucking talent. Like it is, I'm blown away, DC. This is a great special. I
appreciate it, man. You're very sweet, man. I appreciate it, man.
No,
I mean,
you have so many, like, there's so much of this is going to be because, I think your style dictated so much of what I liked about stand up. And Bert and I were just talking about you. You were the guy that like would light the Boston on fire. You had a pace and a rapidness and a I don't give a fuck but coolness about you where what your smile was like almost like when you made yourself laugh. It wasn't, look, we've all seen, myself included, the comic who like and then you laugh to push them over. Your laugh was always genuine. It was like a genuine like okay, that's pretty fun, but man, yeah. I'm sitting here listening to this going like so much of who you are as a stand-up influenced who I am as a stand-up. And by the way, there's so much that I'm watching that I'm going, God damn it, man. That's stuff I still never learned. Like your ability to go in and out of characters. This special is phenomenal, man. Phenomenal.
I really appreciate it, man. And it is great to see again, for even if it's this way, it's great to see and all the stuff you're doing. I'm like, God damn, man. I always knew because you were so definable, Bert was definable. There was no doubt, like, what do we do with this guy? How do we, that thing the industry always says, like, hey, we don't know what to do with Bert. You know what to do with Bert. Bert tells you what to do with Bert. And that fucking machine story, bro.
Can I tell you? For people listening, my style of comedy, what I'm doing now, I discovered with you in that back in the Zinc Bar. In the Zinc Bar.
The Zinc Bar. That's where that storytelling room happened initially. You really were like the first dude to do it with me there. You were fresh from Florida.
I used to tell people this, and everyone's like, "No way." You said, "Hey, man, I'm doing this Zinc Bar. I'd love you to come co-host it with me." And you're like, "I'll host. We'll bring up. It's just stories." I've talked about this so much. You're like, "It's just stories. If you can help me put some people in there," and I was like, "Yeah." And I had all these girls from Florida State, and I hit them up, and I would be like, I had like 12 of them. I'd be like, "Hey, you guys come out. This is going to be fun." And I remember. I'm not throwing shade on anybody, but I will say that you were very adamant. You're like, it's stories. This is before storytelling was hip. Like now there's like a niche, like, yo, I'm a storyteller. You were like, no, this is just stories. And you can't go up and do bits. This isn't an open mic. This is just stories. dude, Scalaro went up and told a legit story that went sideways at one point because he left out a fact, but he stood in his boots and told a story. I remember that. And
Yeah.
I'm not talking shit, but I will say Dave Chappelle rolled in one night and started a story and bailed and started doing bits. And you were like, that's not what this fucking room's about.
I know. I think he got upset with me, man. I think he got upset with me after that. I think it was starting like a party at Magic Johnson's house or something like that. I was like, this is going good. This is going good. But then he aborted mission on it. But that room was great because it was stories and it was jazz afterwards. So it kind of flowed together. It was this little Moroccan like jazz room, and everybody came. Chappelle came through there. Gaffigan told the story. Gaffigan came in and told the story at one time, which I never, I haven't heard like since. And I mean, just random dudes would come through, and it was great. It was great. And I remember I shot a little, indie pilot of it, and I started shopping it around. I took it to like Comedy Central and everything. They were like, our audience really doesn't have the attention span for stories.
And then it's like cut to 10, 15 years later, it's their brand.
Yeah.
Ari Shaffir's doing storytelling.
I hear you, man. I hear you, but that's how it goes. But man, you and Ben really, because I did like 3 nights with you, and then I stopped. But you and Ben took that. Oh, Bailey, yeah, he really Bailey the Hammer, he really took it and ran with it, I mean, I used to just have him close the show because he got to be unfollowable there. He'd have a new one every week. I was like, God damn, dude, you got another one. It was great. And we ended up doing like an offshoot of that, like a little podcast, a few episodes where we'd tell stories back and forth. We had Henley on there and a bunch of other guys, and it was a lot of fun, man. But that's that style I just love, and it's not easy. It's not easy because when you're eating a dick up there, you're in it, and you got you got to ride it out, man. You got to ride it out.
It took me so long to. I mean, I know what I'm saying sounds like I could just say it, whatever. I swear on my children's life. That first night we did it, I told the story of fighting this black dude in high school. And then the next night we did it, I told the story of getting fired from Barnes and Noble. And then I swear to God, I walked back to Boston to go, because I think I had to go work the door still. I walked back to Boston to go do my spot. And I was like, wait, that worked so well. Why don't I just do that on stage? And I remember getting there and I was like, oh, you can't tell stories on stage. Like there's 2 different things. And I went back to whatever. I was jacking off on a cheeseburger, like whatever I was doing that I thought were bits. I thought so needed to be bits. My favorite, but you were doing that on stage also. Like you were telling stories on stage which were like, and everyone used to say, oh, I'm a storyteller, but you were telling stories on stage where the thing that I loved was your characters you could visualize them when you started. Like I remember the guy made you take his chick to prom.
Oh, the biscuits. Oh yeah. The biscuits. Biscuits.
That chick's voice makes me giggle to this day. I hear it in my head. I remember hearing that and just going, fuck.
2, 4, 6, 8. I'm gonna go get something to eat.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. Well, Tony Woods, he was the dude that I saw do like long form stuff, and I was like, okay, so this is possible. And then my wife, that biscuit story was actually, I was telling her about my prom, and she's like, you got to talk about that on stage. And I'm like, well, it's this long and there's like, there's fat on it and everything. She's like, you got to talk about it on stage. And after I finally got that thing to work on stage, I'm like, there's just no going back. I can't, I'll write the jokes and I'll have the jokes, but man, this stuff is so satisfying because it's, you get to incorporate everything. It's like surf and turf. You do the characters, you get the jokes in there. There's a linear narrative, it's, I really enjoy that machine story, man. Someone just turned me on to that a while ago. I was like, God damn, that's a great story, bro. That's the Bert calling card right there. That is the Bert calling card.
I'm telling you, that means the world to me, DC. There was so much when I walked into Boston, and I remember going I remember literally looking at your set going as a checklist of going, all right, these are the things you need to do if you're going to be a good comic. You had so many tools in your bag. I remember you could just real quick do an impression. I remember being like, I need an impression. I need not even an impression. You could just go, this is my impression of an Italian eye doctor. What you looking at?
What the fuck you looking at? Oh yeah.
And then and then it'd be bam, and onto the next one, onto the next one, onto the next one. And I was like, fuck. So did you start with Tony in DC? Yeah.
I started, he had been doing it a little bit, before me. And he had a room. It was like a night out at this place, the Comedy Connection out in Maryland. I was going to University of Maryland. I did a little talent show there. And then I was like, let me go see what this stand-up. And the first night I saw stand-up, Chappelle was doing a contest. He was 14 at this club named Garvin's. That was kind of the quintessential comedy club with the brick wall. And he annihilated on this contest. And I'm like, I want to do that. And it was kind of like the whole night was encapsulated what stand-up is, because he killed on this contest, but there was a local dude who was a headliner who was supposed to do the Tonight Show and was kind of established. And that guy won the contest. And everybody was looking around like, what? That kid ripped it. And I remember seeing Chappelle at the bar afterwards, like, oh man. But then that guy, I think, went to LA to tape the Tonight Show and then had some kind of panic attack or something and broke out in hives and couldn't do it and never got to do it. And then I never heard of that guy again. And boom, here there's Chappelle. But Tony was the guy we all kind of looked to here because, he was the weaver of, the best Tony Woods story I can think of is, and you may have been there at the Boston Comedy Club. There was in the Village, there's a place called the Boston Comedy Club. Anybody watching this? And it was a rough room. That was where you got your metal tested. It was gladiator school. And Barry Katz calls me. He's like, "Hey man, I'm doing a UK comedy tour audition, man. Aren't you?" And a Saturday night. And the week before I had been there, and there were these two dudes, Italian dudes from Bensonhurst, and they had been heckling, and I was slamming these guys. And the one guy left that night and did this to me, did the neck thing to me. I'm like, yeah, buddy, I give you this, whatever. So the night of the UK tour, those guys are back to see me, and they're in the audience, and I guess they have some shit ready. And Ian Edwards went up, and this is when he had his dreads and everything. He went up, and those guys started making some noise, and he dealt with them very gently, but they were pissed off about the week before, so they laid into him. They called him the N-word. They spit at him. A huge fight breaks out. All the English guys who are booking the tour just in the back, just terrified. This chick gets hit in the head with a bottle in the front row. She's bleeding. Chairs are getting broken. Matt Frost has his big flashlight. He's hitting people with the flashlight. This is fucking crazy. It's pandemonium. Barry takes off, see you, man. And he's gone. He goes out through the bag. It just takes off, leaves the English guys. Cops come. They arrested two dudes from Bensonhurst. The show resumes. And Tony Woods goes up and does a half hour just about what happened. Man, the dude and Shorty. And I remember seeing this chick with this, she got hit in the head with a bottle, just bleeding, laughing in the front row, just her head split open, bleeding. And that, I think, was Tony Woods' real gift, is just being able to take a situation and do time on it. Time on it and stretch it out. He did a half hour on what had just happened, and people were dying. It was great, man. I thought maybe you were there that night. I don't know.
No, I was not there that night. I was Frosty was not at the club as much when I was there. and Barry was never at the club. He was in LA driving a Ferrari, I think.
Man.
Tony Woods is someone that I feel like, the way that people are into comedy these days, and as popular as these podcasts have gotten, it's like people forget Tony Woods was like Chappelle's mentor. Like he was, if it wasn't for Tony Woods, there literally probably would be no Chappelle.
Yeah, I agree.
And probably no me. I listened to that guy so intensely when if he said stop doing something. I remember telling a story about there was a girl that worked at the Boston, and she got me to go back. I'm not going to say her name, but I wanted to say her name so badly. I wanted to, hey,
I know who you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about. And she had gotten me to jerk off in front of her in my apartment, and Tony just comes up to me. I'm telling the story on stage, and Tony just comes up to me and goes, "Shorty, I'd never tell that story ever again." And I was like, "Really?" That was the funniest. Oh man, but he was so. I've spent so many nights just literally hanging on his every word at the Boston, at the Baggett underneath, and just anything he'd say about comedy, I'd be like, I mean, it was amazing. I remember when the probably one of the biggest stories of that time for me was, and I've told this a bunch, and Tracy Morgan says it's not true and it's totally fine. I completely side with him. If he wants to say it's not true, then I'll say whatever he wants. But I had this great Tracy Morgan story of him taking me out around the corner to smoke a joint and telling me it was PCP, and me freaking out. And I'm for Tracy's sake, it was not PCP. I'm a big fan of Tracy Morgan's, but
now, that wasn't the one Jay Moore did. Oh, that is the one Jay Moore did.
Such a great fucking story. But Tony Woods was there that night, so Tony was there. I mean, I hate to fucking but Tony was there. So it's like he keeps saying that across the board, he was like, when he heard Jay saying it, he was like, Jay took our story. Because that's when Tony tells it, it is 100 times better. It is so much better because all this innocence I have is out the window. And he's like, Shorty, I think your shirt might have been off too. I'm just telling you. And so, but I remember the end of the night, the very end, the story, Tracy Morgan snaps his shirt and he goes, "Now that's how you get out of paying the check." "Hey, I'm going uptown, Tony. You going?" And Tony looks at me and he goes, You want to come along for the ride?" And I was like, "I'm going home now." And Tony just went off into the night with Tracy Morgan.
"I'll see you later, shorty."
He came up in DC. I was at the DC Improv, and I'm doing my set, and Tony's in the back, and he just goes, "Hey, shorty, tell that Tracy Morgan story." And I was like, "Is that Tony Woods?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Tony, why don't you come up and tell it with me?" And he goes, "All right." So he comes up and we tell together, right? I'm in my head. I'm like, "Oh my God, my wife is here. My wife is here. She's got my camera. She better be filming this. She better be filming this." We do 20 minutes on this story together. He tells it like dueling banjos. And I'm telling what I realized in my story are just facts. Like my story is just facts of this is how the evening went. Tony is blowing it up with comedy. Like he's turned it into this Batman and Robin. It's so fucking funny the way he's taking it off and almost grabbing the baton and swimming away from the boat so far away that no one can see him, that the story shifts. And then he comes back and he's like, "And then what happened?" And it's so amazing. I get off stage.
Oh, wow.
I get off stage.
Do you have that posted anywhere? Is that seeable?
I get off stage and my wife, I go, "Did you tape that?" And she goes, "I should have, right? That was great." I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" I go, "My camera's right there. You have a phone in your hand." And she was like, "Honey, I was so mesmerized. I just couldn't think in the time. I'm so sorry, dude." But Tony, he does not care. He has no, I'm in my head going, that's content. And Tony just was like, "See, hey man, we going to this strip club with these lesbians. You want to go?
That's the beginning of every Tony Wood story. We go to strip club with the lesbians. Oh my God, man.
This podcast is brought to you by Hims. I had a great conversation last night with Christina Pajinski and Tom Segura. And Christina Pajinski said to me, Tom's wife, Push, said, you still have all your hair. I got to be honest with you. And by the way, Tom bust my balls about this. She goes, whatever you've done has worked. You still have hair. Yeah. You know why? Because I got in front of this problem. And Hims is a company that is dedicated to just general men's wellness. And one of the biggest things about this is hair loss. 66% of men start losing their hair by their 35. And if you're noticing something, it may be too late, but if you get in front of that train, then you can do something about it. And I remember, myself included, I went to Weird Solutions to try to fix it when you can just go to medicine and science. Literally, forhims.com is one-stop shopping for hair loss, skincare, sexual wellness for men. It is time to write the chapter in your life. You write it. Don't let it be written for you. These aren't snake oil pills or gas station supplements. These are prescriptions backed by science. Like myself, I've been using these since I was 22 years old. No more, I had to go to a doctor. You don't have to do that. For Hims connects you with licensed medical professionals online, which will save you hours, completely confidential and discreet. All you got to do is answer a few questions. They're going to review it. A professional medical will review it. And if they determine it's right for you, medication is prescribed to you to treat hair loss and shipped directly and discreetly to your door. Today, Hims is giving you their best offer yet. If you're not happy with the results in 90 days, Hims will give you a full refund. And right now, my listeners can get their first visit absolutely free. Go to forhims.com/Bertcast. That's forhims.com/Bertcast. Full refund price paid available for the first 90 days supplies. Refund request must be made between 90 and 180 days after product shipment. Delivered. Prescription products require an online consultation with a medical professional will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Remember, that's forhims.com/Bertcast. This podcast is brought to you by Policy Genius. I love Policy Genius, and I'll tell you why. It connects with the time in my life where I was presented with a overwhelmingly daunting task. Life insurance. Life insurance for me, I was at Coffee Bean in the Grove, and my dad called and he goes, we just had Georgia, and he's like, buddy, you need life insurance. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what was involved. All I knew is I didn't want to deal with it, and I didn't know how to do it. Well, Policy Genius takes all of that out of your hands, and they help you do shopping for life insurance literally has never been easier with Policy Genius than with Policy Genius. They combine a cutting-edge insurance marketplace with the help from licensed experts to save you time and money. Here's how it works, okay? First, head to policygenius.com. In minutes, you can work out how much coverage you need and compare quotes for the top insurers to find your best price. Policy Genius will then compare policies starting as little as $1 a day. You might even be eligible to skip the in-person medical exam, which I did not know was a part of it. Once you apply, Policy Genius team's going to handle all the paperwork and red tape. And the best part is they work for you, not the insurance companies. So if you hit any speed bumps along the process, they're going to take care of everything. That kind of service has earned Policy Genius a 5-star rating across over 1,600 reviews on Trustpilot and Google. So if you need life insurance, head to policygenius.com right now to get started. You can save 50% off or more by comparing quotes. Policy Genius. When it comes to insurance, it's nice to get it right. So when you started, who was your DC scene? Because that's another thing. I didn't even realize that DC wasn't even your name. That was the nickname they gave to you at the Black Clubs.
Yeah. Because nobody could say Ben Wertofsky. Actually, it was Uncle Jimmy Mack who died in the Tracy Morgan accident, and he gave everybody their names. He gave Brooklyn Mike his name. He's from Brooklyn. He's Mike. You get made by this guy. So if you were actually funny, you would get made by this guy. So I'm like, I'm Ben Wertofsky. He's like, man, I can't say that. What? And then so he's like, you're from DC. You're DC Benny, and that became my name. But everybody thought I was going to come up there and rap with their turntables or some shit.
Yeah.
And but when I was coming up, all right, there was Tony. There was a guy named Chris Thomas who just did impressions. He did like killer impressions. There was a guy named Bob Somerville who did political stuff, really smart political stuff. And I'm trying to think of some of the other the other dudes that, there was, Tommy Davidson, Martin Lawrence, were also out of here. And right around when I was starting, I think they left for LA. I think they were gone. And so I mostly really saw, I mostly saw Tony. I don't want to bring it all back to him, but I mostly saw him doing it. And, there'd be like these little, DC had a good, robust scene, a really good comedy scene. And then, and then it was Chappelle. And then Patton Oswalt and Blaine Capatch. They were like the Baltimore guys. I'd see them in Baltimore a lot. And it was a robust scene. And then it kind of, I left to New York about 4 years in. So it was like, I got like 91, something like that, maybe about 4 or 5 years in. And then I heard it just kind of died for a long time. And now there's like I'm here now at my dad's house. And there's little mics and stuff and shows everywhere. All these little indie shows that all these dudes pop. I don't know any of these dudes now. All these young dudes, man. I don't know any of them. It's crazy. It's like, I think there's got to be more comedians now than ever in any time in history, right?
Oh, I think I don't know. I was hanging with Jay Leno last night. He came. Me and Segura did a show at. Let me tell you something.
Wow.
Me and Segura did a show at the Rose Bowl. In the parking lot. It's like a drive-in show. And Leno, and I had done something for Leno earlier in the day for his garage. And I was like, hey, you want to come to a set? And he was like, yeah, I'll come to a set. And so he just shows up. Segura's like fucking floored. And he's like, so where do I go in the lineup? And you're like, oh, I forgot you're just a comic. And then he goes, I got to apologize. He goes, I missed all you guys. I missed everything about you guys. Like when I was doing the Tonight Show, he goes, I worked so hard, I just missed comedy. And he's like, there's so many comics right now. And I'm like, Jay, you have no fucking idea.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my God. That's so funny. Where am I going in the lineup?
Yeah. And we're like, can you open the show? It would be really, and he walks out and everyone's like, holy fuck, it's Jay Leno. Like, what the fuck is Jay Leno doing out here? And you know what, DC? He just ran jokes. He hasn't been able to run because he hasn't been on stage since the virus started. He just started running all coronavirus jokes. Like he had a bunch of coronavirus jokes, like bam, 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 bam. And then just goes 10 minutes and he goes, all right, let's start the show. I'm going to bring up your host of the night. And then got up. Literally, like he had another mic to hit. He was like, "Take care, guys. Good seeing you," and just bailed.
Hopped in a cab. Oh, yeah. That's great, man. That is great.
It was a real treat. But yeah, there's so many comics. I mean, I felt like, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I started in 97, 98, I didn't know that there was the road. Like I started, I thought you just did it in New York. That's how it worked.
Well, that's for me. I had structured my career like that, where maybe I catch a college or something like that because you're out for a night. You do a show, you come back, you make the money for the road in a night for a week on the road. But I never really did the road because I was staying in the city trying to do TV and film stuff and trying to commercials or whatever and trying to go that route. And I didn't want to miss any of that. And I trying to structure a career that way. But so the road for me came much later. That was when, the TV stuff kind of dried up a little bit. They didn't need old Puerto Rican dads. There wasn't a demand for that, but I had to get into these clubs, like 20 years into the business. I'm like knocking on the door, like, hey, can I book a weekend? And they're like, well, you've never been here. We've never seen you before. I'm like, yeah, but I got a special. I got this, I got that. And it was weird, man. It was a weird way to go about it. It was like ass backwards,
yeah, but that was the way, like the way it was. I remember getting on the road and being like, and I remember me and Gary Goldman used to sit there and say, how does someone get on the road? I remember us sitting at a coffee bean going, like, if I called a club for you and pretended to be your manager, and by the way, we had managers. It was Barry Katz. It was Barry Katz. It was Barry Katz who was like, I remember Barry, I'm ever hesitant to like the way I talk about Barry because he listens to this, and I love Barry. I have no ill will towards Barry, but there's a fine line between talking shit about Barry and being honest about Barry.
Yeah. Hey man, are you listening?
I remember, I was doing stand up for 6 months, handing out flyers, barking. By the way, do you remember? I was trying to tell someone about this. And no one could remember it. So when I started barking, there was also a guy who barked with Louis Schaefer. Like I want to say his name was Mark or something. He was a Jewish guy, had like a good smile, and he had a bit where he'd hit himself on the head with the mic, and red dots would show up all over his forehead throughout his set. It was this early into his set. He was, I can't remember his name.
I remember that bit, but I don't remember the dude. I don't remember the dude, man. I definitely remember Louis Schaefer, but
oh man.
But I'm trying to think of who that guy was. Huh? So you were barking.
Yeah.
Weren't you pre-Schaefer?
No. I was Louis Schaefer. Louis Schaefer. I remember the first time I worked. By the way, these are just stories that I feel like we'll enjoy. But like, I remember the first night I get the job. November 4th is the day I got the job at the Boston Comedy Club.
Wow.
Probably 1998, I'm guessing. And he says, get down to the club early. Okay. What was the German chick's name?
Yana.
Yeah. Yana's going to be there. Yana's going to open up. Patrick will let you in, set the chairs up and get some music going. And I'll be there at like, I want to say 7. So you set everything up. I'll be there, and then we'll start bringing in people. And I was like, I'm gonna fucking blow his mind. I'm gonna show him that I can really do this. And by the way, there was no street sense in me at all. Like I was from Florida, and so I set up the chairs and I start barking the fuck out of that room, and I fill it with like 40 people, right? And by the way, I grabbed my CDs. I brought all my CDs with me, and I thought, it'd be great. Start off this night. I'm going to put Richard Pryor in. Let them listen to some comedy. Get ready for this, right? So I'm sitting people. Everyone's having a good time. I was like loading them up with drinks. Louis shows up, and I go, I think you're going to love it up there. And he goes up in the room, and he goes, it's packed. And I said, yeah. And he goes, are you playing Richard Pryor for them? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I can't follow Richard Pryor. He goes up.
That's hilarious.
Richard Pryor goes up and eats a dick on stage, and I was like, "This is horrible."
Handsome man, handsome man,
chocolatey black man, chocolatey black,
shoot, man,
not gay.
Crazy.
I love that. You like this blazer? Armani-ish.
That is crazy, dude. That is crazy. The Richard Pryor thing. I never knew that. Well, at least he was being honest.
That was my first night at that club. I learned so much. I remember Patrice O'Neal, Rich Voss, Jim Norton, and Bobby Kelly are out on the street, and Patrice was catcalling women, and he was like, and I'd never seen that before. Like, just we don't, there's no foot traffic in Florida, so you never catcalled anybody. And I said, I was laughing, and he goes, what? And I said, that's never going to work. And he goes, it works. I didn't, by the way, I did not know Patrice. And I was like, and he was like, you think you got something better? And by the way, now I'm so comfortable talking to people on the street that I had to talk to them anyway. So a girl walked by, and I was like, hey, you look like you had a rough day at work. Why don't I buy you a glass of wine? And they laughed, and she goes, no, and walked by. And they laughed, and they're like, yeah, you think that's going to work? And they started making fun of me so hard that the girl stopped and came back and said, you know what? Fuck them. I'll take you up on that glass of wine.
Oh, shit.
And they're all like this. And DC, I was like, I had just gotten the job barking, and this was my dream. And I said, I can't. She goes, excuse me? I can't do that. I just got this job, and this is my dream. And she was like, wait, you can't take me for a glass of wine? And I was like, I have to work. I'm sorry. And they're like, you fucking idiot. She was hot too. They're like, you should have taken her up on that. You should have. It's
like the sad end of an indie film or something, man. God damn.
Oh my God. Oh, you never got caught up. That was the cool thing about you, is like you, Pete Corielli, Ben Bailey, I remember Tom Rhodes. You guys never got caught up in the like. Sometimes I think people get not. I don't mean this bad, but like people. Let me rephrase it this way: people like Sebastian Maniscalco show up, do their work, they hang out a little bit, and they'll chop it up a little bit before they're set, but they're not sitting there going like, I'm going to be here until 4 a.m. with you guys at the table eating fries. You were a guy that went in, you'd go down to the bag and have a couple of beers, but you weren't going around following a scene. You were so independently you.
No, and that probably did not help my career. I feel like a lot of dudes that hung out, it's like a networking thing or whatever, and you make your allegiances. But no, man, I didn't want to, you know what? I managed nightclubs for years before I ever did comedy. So it just kind of, I had a lot of history with just being in nightclubs, and that, when you turn the lights on, it's just a box and it smells like beer. And, I got married pretty early. So I'd go home and chill with my wife. That was my thing, and I had some legendary hangouts with like Bailey and Corielli and all that, and a couple guys, but it was kind of irregular. I mean, I really just, plus when you start off doing comedy, you have to hang out in clubs and wait and wait. And I felt like, to me, I didn't want to do that anymore. I'd made my bones. I'd done that part. So I kept it a little neutral. I tried to get along with just about everybody.
Yeah.
And hung out, but it wasn't my job. It wasn't like some dudes went to that was their gig, man. It's like they hung out afterwards, and that was it. So yeah, I guess anyway, long story short, that was a pretty accurate assessment. I kind of got in and got out, and I still do it like that,
Well, I think it's so interesting now because people idolize so much of the hang, and so many people weren't there that go like, man, to get to know Patrice, how great was that? And you're like, it was not that great.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to get shit on repeatedly. I had a falling out with Patrice. I mean, we were pretty tight. And then I feel like he was on this kind of anti-marriage rant. We had, I remember last time we hung out, and I was giving him a ride back to Jersey or something like that. And then we just chilled in my car for like 3 hours and talked and had a great time. And at the end of the night, he goes, the reason you're not more successful, man, is because you give a fuck. You got to stop giving a fuck. And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. And he's like, I'm telling you, you got to stop giving a fuck. And then after that, we got into a huge blowout. Because he said something about my wife or something, and that it was getting physical. I really didn't want to offend people, and I wanted my stuff to come from a place where it wasn't offensive, where now it could potentially be thought of that way when you're doing these characters and stuff. And I'm like, maybe he had a point. Maybe just got to stop giving a fuck,
That's an interesting insight, because I really give a fuck. Like, I genuinely give a fuck. It bothers me if someone comes to a show and they leave and they're like, that was really that. I remember one time I remember you telling me this one time. I remember that when I first started telling the fight of black guy story, I brought it to the stage. I remember you and your wife were in the back corner, and for everyone should know, your wife's African-American.
Yeah.
Or I say African-American. I don't know where she's from, but she's black.
She's black. Yeah. My wife is black.
And you guys were in the back, and I remember there was a part of that joke, and this is when there's no PC police in Boston Comedy Club. There's a part of the joke that I ended up telling in a pitch all through Hollywood, for the record. But the joke was, the black guy is beating my ass, and he stops and he goes, say the N-word. But I'm not saying the N-word on stage. I was saying the N-word. I was saying, he's like, call me the N-word, call me one. And the part of the joke, and I thought it was really funny, was I was like, don't worry, I will. Like, not now, but I will. Like, I'm not going to say it now. There's a lot around. Take a look. And I think it's going to make you even madder. Like, I don't know if you've heard it, but if I say it, you're going to get really upset. And so that was the joke. And I got off stage, and you're like, it's a really great joke. And you're like, but I don't think you need to say the N-word. I think you can just do the joke I don't think you need to do that. I think you're taking it too far. And I remember thinking like, I'm breaking boundaries. I'm being edgy. And then looking around it, I remember the look on your wife's face was like, definitely didn't need to hear that word tonight. Like, and
she heard so much worse.
Your wife was just like, I was having a really great night. And I remember that impressed so much on me that I was like, oh, did I just ruin people's night?
Nah, dude. No. It was like, for me, it was just a tweak at that time that I thought, because I was looking at half the crowd and I was looking at the other half of the crowd.
Yeah.
And half the crowd did this shit, once they heard it. And I'm like, if you were kind of new at it, and I thought if you're new, get a little momentum, then you can work that later. But, get that momentum first. If you're shutting the door on half of them now.
I'm a kid from Florida who's blind. I'm in fucking the Village dropping N-bombs going, am I right, guys? Am I right? Everyone had this experience, huh, guys? But
I remember you, dude. And I think I posted this on one of your posts or something, but it was January and you had shorts and flip-flops in the toe ring, man. That to me, I was like, this dude's going to make it. Nothing's going to stop this guy. He's got the flip-flops in the toe ring in New York, January, walking around barking, man.
If I could have just stayed there a little longer, I learned so many bad habits in LA. Like so much conforming happened in LA where it would never have happened and it took so long to break that. And I remember just even coming back and from LA and and I was doing the thing with Louis Schaefer, Ben Bailey, and Rich Voss and Patrice. We went to Scotland. Remember when Louis married that Scottish chick?
Oh yeah, the manager, the chick that managed him. Yeah, that helped a little bit.
I think they had a kid.
Yes, that was my roast joke for Louis Schaefer's roast. Was the kid's name was Columbus, and I said Columbus's first discovery was that his dad was gay. The kid grew up; he's all handsome now. I see him on Facebook. He's like a supermodel, man. Yeah,
Louis Schaefer was a good-looking man. He was a good-looking man,
handsome man.
But I went out to LA and I came back with so many bad habits. Because the one thing I'm curious what your experience was when you went out to LA, because you were distinctly, in my opinion, a New York City comic. Like Corielli, Bobby Kelly, there was you guys were what I defined as murder any room in New York, black, white, Puerto Rican. Like if it was Talent's room on Sunday night, like you could destroy anywhere. And what did you think when you first started coming out to LA and doing sets? What was your impression of LA?
I just, for me, Los Angeles, I always had a rough time out there. It was always got to be like, my impression was when you went up in front of a crowd, it felt kind of like they felt easy. It felt like they felt easy and sensitive. It felt like, the majority of the comics, and that was back then. I don't know how it is now. I mean, I haven't done stand up there in a minute, but it just felt like there were a lot of guys who had like a tight 5 minutes, or a tight 10 minutes, or maybe 15. But there wasn't like you'd see the same kind of. There was a style. You'd see the same kind of style. There wasn't a lot of like variety and just it was kind of nuts and boltsy. That was my sort of take back then. And I would go there and I'd be like, it was almost like when I would do the clubs, it was like the audience hadn't seen that before, that kind of comedy before. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying that kind of comedy where you're doing 7-8 sets a night and bouncing from here and you're just, you're razor sharp. It felt like they hadn't seen that before. And it felt kind of like a hot knife through butter. And conversely, now, I mean, over the last year, I was talking to Bill about this. I saw him at the West Side Comedy Club. The New York audiences have gotten so goddamn sensitive. The New York audiences have gotten sensitive that it's almost like you can say more, push more boundaries, or have a kind of more authentic voice outside of New York City. It's I don't know. Maybe it's like that in Los Angeles now. Maybe you can get up there, and because it's evolved so much comedically, maybe it's a different. I don't know. I mean, what is it like there now doing, or before the pandemic, doing comedy? I mean,
I think LA was like, it was almost like a cornucopia when right before the pandemic. I remember sitting in that hallway and being like, how does this end? I mean, like, I remember thinking like, and it's very simple. Joe moves to Austin, and Tom moves to everyone moved. Joey Diaz moved to Jersey. Like, everyone just left. But it was so insanely freeing. But also, I would say you could take chances, but you could say anything on stage. But the lineups were so fucking thick that you were like, I mean, there was lineups where it was like David Spade, Norm Macdonald, Bill Burr, Joe Rogan, Jim Jeffries, Doug Stanhope, like just like the fucking biggest hitters of comedy in the world going up. And when you got a spot, you're like, Jesus Christ, man, I can't take any chances. I got to do shit that works.
Yeah, I hear that.
But it was, and you can take big swings at the store now. But I remember going to LA, and my analogy I drew when I was young was, I feel like I'm in a place, and I'm prison strong. Like, I've been working out in the yard with a broomstick and cinder blocks just so that I can defend myself in the shower, right? And now I come here, and they want to work on my abs, and I went, oh, this, because you're right. There was a definite style in LA at that time where, like, whatever worked is what almost everyone did a version of.
That's what it seemed like. This is a while back.
And by the way, we should give a little, right now, Dane Cook's listen to this going, yeah, it was my style. They took my fucking style. I worked my ass off, and everyone did a version of me, including me. I went back to New York with a little bit of, Dane in me. Yeah. He saw that, and he was like, I guess you've been in LA over the Laugh Factory.
Oh, that's hilarious, man. Yeah, that's what it was. It was like everybody saw the one dude. And there was a lot of, like, all of a sudden everybody's physical doing dinosaurs and stuff. And, it was something else, man. So, but now different ball game. Like, I've seen those lineups and the heavy hitters that are working there, so
I'm curious to see what happens post-pandemic. I mean, I don't even know where this fucking business goes.
Crazy.
I really honestly don't.
It's really crazy. I mean, you're fortunate. I guess you're touring, somehow, and that's, it's really, it's cool because you let the dust settle, you dust off the ring rust and go out there and bang it out. I post stuff I've been just doing stories and posting them on YouTube, and I haven't been on stage, I'm looking forward to doing it again, but man, it's,
you think you'll stay in DC?
No, we moved out to Long Island. Just was right before the pandemic. So we were living in Brooklyn. It's gotta have been, I don't know, 20 years, 30 years, whatever. We moved out. We bought a little house in a little vacation spot, a beach cottage that I renovated it had nothing to do with the pandemic. It was just going to be, we just moved out there. So it's surrounded by vineyards and beach and everything. And I like that vibe. I'm kind of burnt out, of the city. So I got this little spot, little bungalow, we rent it and everything. And then I come down to DC and see my dad. He's alone, and we party together a little bit. We hit it hard yesterday, man. Jesus Christ. He's still asleep upstairs. And so I think I'm going to bounce back and forth from when it starts again in the city. I'll bounce back and forth a little bit. It's a long commute, but I just enjoy the quality of life, being near beaches and surrounded by vineyards and having fresh seafood and, a little room. I was getting into so much stuff in Brooklyn, man. I mean, it's like I got in this fucking parking vendetta with this I was in this old school Italian neighborhood with this guy, and it just escalated. It was crazy. And there was just a lot of, I'm like, I got to get out of this, man. I can't, from 53, I can't be fucking around with these dudes, man. I got to think about it. I want that chill Zen life, man,
Yeah. Miller High Life. Miller High Life brings pride to the simple things in life. Miller High Life is an unpretentious quality beer with refreshing champagne like tiny bubbles in an iconic glass bottle, accessible to everyone. Whether it's big or small in life, there's moments that are worth celebrating every day. For me, over the summer, it was the end of the day after this tour on the Hot Summer Nights tour and playing pickleball. There was nothing better than playing pickleball and opening a beautiful Miller High Life to celebrate a great night of work and hanging out with my friends. Listen, this is a quality beer that's within everyone's reach. Created to bring pride in the simple things in life, in that iconic brand that you can be proud to hold. Miller High Life's been faithfully brewed the same way since its start on New Year's Eve, 1903. Their founders believed that everyone should enjoy the good life, which is why they created the champagne of beers. I remember the first time I heard the champagne of beers, I was like, that's exactly what I'm looking for. That is taking it to the next level, which is why Miller High Life has been famously known for over 100 years. Miller High Life, the champagne of beers, a quality beer within everyone's reach. Please celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This podcast is brought to you by Harry's. I feel like Harry's knows the story of me and my dad's relationship when it comes to shaving. When I first started shaving, I did not know how expensive blades were. I had no clue. I wasn't buying them. My dad was. And he would have them. And I'd just go in, stick my razor, and I'd use a new razor blade every time I shaved. It wasn't until my dad was watching me tear through razor blades. He's like, buddy, do you have any idea how expensive those are? And I was like, no, I'm not buying them. And he's like, okay, you use a blade for about 6 months with your beard, okay? You don't need to switch out blades. Well, Harry was founded by two friends, Jeff and Andy, who felt exactly like my dad and were tired for overpaying for razors. They thought most big brands were over-designed, overpriced, and quite honestly, out of touch. They founded Harry's as a return to the essential quality blade with an honest price at literally as low as $2 a refill. They wanted to sell products that they could be proud of. So they raised a bunch of money to buy a razor factory in Germany, and they've been honing precision blades for over 100 years. They source their steel from Sweden, which we all know everything's better in Sweden, right? And they own the entire manufacturing process from research and design to the factory floor. This allows them to keep the prices low, and they are delivering their sharpest shave ever, and they aren't raising prices. These blades are so sharp that guys shaving 4 times a week reported that with Harry's new blades, their 8th shave was as smooth as their first shave. And they can confidently stand by these blades with a 100% money-back guarantee at harrys.com. Harry's is now available wherever you shop. I see them everywhere. They have a great offer for my listeners right now. New U.S. customers can redeem a Harry's trial set at harrys.com/Bert for just $3. You'll get a 5-blade razor featuring their new sharper blades, a weighted ergonomic handle, foaming shave gel with aloe, and a travel cover to protect your blade when you're on the go. Just go to harrys.com/Bert and redeem your trial offer today.
So, are you in LA, or if you moved out to some other?
We're in LA. We're, when everyone started bailing, my wife was like, I was like, you could. I was just talking to Segura about this last night. I was like, the quality of life in Texas is leaps and bounds better than what I can offer my children here in LA. It's a very fucked up life, in not horrible, but it just is not. There's certain parameters where it's like, hey, there's a homeless guy that's passed out in our front yard. Oh shit. Okay. Let's call the cops. I think he's overdosed. All right. And like, that's something my daughter's witnessed. And you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And I guess you get numb to it. My daughter got into a car accident the other day. The guy, and it's like when I was a kid, 16 years old, you get in a car accident, you call your dad. It was a big deal, but it wasn't like scary. And the guy, got in her face, and I wasn't there. And if it wasn't for this, as my daughter describes him, old skinny Jamaican guy that came out and like yell at the guy. And she was like, Dad, I love that he had my back, but he didn't have a mask on. And I was like, I appreciate you backing me up, but can you do it from 6 feet apart? But like, and so like this guy bumped into her and he got fucking crazy and started yelling at her. And so it's like, yeah, as a matter of fact, you see, we are going after this to look at small cabins at Lake Arrowhead to try to do exactly what you're talking about, where we go, hey, let's just go up there for a month and stay in a cabin and have some quality of a different experience, you know?
Yeah, well, that's, what had happened for us is we're living in Brooklyn, and then we got this place out in the North Fork, Long Island. And we would go there every week. After I do my set Sunday morning, I couldn't wait to get out there. I'd stay Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I'd come back, do sets again, do shows or whatever. And it was every week. And then I'm like, man, I love it so much out there. Why am comedy's the only reason I'm in Brooklyn. There's got to be a way to do this commute or something. It's got to, because I love it so much out there. And it's just, I feel better, man. I feel like, physically better and mentally better. And it's been great, man. I mean, aside from all this shit that's been going on, I mean, I'm really happy with this, with the new situation, being out there. And I had been putting on little shows out there where it'd be like dinner. My neighbor's a 5-star chef, that nobody knows he is. And he's got this little restaurant spot, and we do like small dinner, 30 people in the comedy show, and I bring some comics from the city, and everybody loved it, man. And so I'm hoping I can start that again. That was a lot of fun, man. It's like, I like doing those little shows, little Zig Bar style shows, man.
But I'm so jealous because you see, I see like you, Pete, Ben, Bobby Kelly, like all you guys seem to have like disappeared from the city and found these great lives, and I'm just like, oh, like it seems like such a cool, like I think Joey Diaz lives next to Florentine, and he was like, dog, the lifestyle he is a million times fucking better. Like it, and I just look at it and I'm like, I think Pete was renovating a fucking cabin or something, or renovating a farmhouse.
I'll bet. Yeah. Corielli. Yeah. He's been out there. He's been out for a while, I think.
And he was hardcore New York. Roll joints, walk the dog at 2 a.m. Like,
oh yeah. I thought that was never going to happen. When I heard that, I was like, what? I thought that was never going to happen. But I'll tell you, man, it's just, I feel like I'm making room for the the new people to scrap in there and do whatever. And I just, I don't want to climb that mountain every day, getting on the train, doing, the city for me, I love it. But it puts some mileage on me. So now I have kind of a healthy distance, and I can hop in and do my thing. Yeah, I didn't go to really museums anymore. I'm not seeing Broadway shows. Like, what the fuck am I doing? What am I fucking doing?
I'm not getting discounts at the bodega. I don't know what the fuck.
Right? I mean, got my weed spot out there, so it's all good.
I'm curious to see where your stand-up goes, because your stand-up is so indicative of your experience. Like everything. It feels like when I especially when I watch your special, which I can't stop saying is so fantastic.
I appreciate it, bro.
But there's so much. It is you taking the parts of New York that rubbed off on you throughout the day and just sharing them. Like if you could bump into people's DNA, it's like, oh, this was this experience. This is this. It was so. It's so like you and back to even when I was younger, I'd watch you and I'd be like. He's like, it's almost like you walked by something and you just grabbed it and you're like, I'm taking that on stage with me. If it's the $1 guy or the Jamaican nanny, it was like you'd grab stuff off the street and then take it on stage. And I'm dying to see what you do with your stand-up now that you're living. Like, I'm dying to hear stories about your dad. I'm dying to hear stories about renovation. I've been following you on Instagram on these renovations, and I'm like, there is a GQ-ness to you. Like your whole career. I'm from your picture of you smoking a cigarette. I remember when you walked in. I remember the first time I ever heard of you. I was like, "Who the fuck is that? He's gorgeous." And they're like, "He's DC Benny. He also models, but he's a."
That's crazy, dude. That is crazy. Well, I'm looking forward to being able to, talk a little bit about that change. It's been, there's these little things because, like you said, being on the subway in the city, it's like the bottle starts rolling. You see this, there's the dude who comes in who's trying to hustle you. There's, I devoured that stuff. And now I feel like now I've done it. And now I'm kind of trying to transition to being this fish out of water there because there, where I am, there's people who've been there. There's levels of like people have been there from like 1645 and came over on the ship and, you're not a Horton. You're not, so there's that kind of shit. It's kind of like being in the town, where they shot Jaws. It's a little like that,
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting, but then there are these Brooklynites that are there that are these kind of expat Brooklynites that I kind of have found a little circle. So it'll be interesting to see how it evolves for sure. Yeah.
Was that always your style when you did stand up? Like when you were younger, was that your personality to kind of like, because you do paint a picture so well in that sometimes, like I was thinking of this, watching the special, I was like, you're almost like a rough, if Woody Allen could fight in a shot, like you, and I hate using Woody Allen as an example now, that sounds so horrible, but you have a way of presenting a side of New York that he would have never seen because he wasn't tough enough, but even it's just your experience. And like, were you like that when you were younger?
For me, it was that I thought back on this. For me, it was always that these things would happen to me, man. I don't know what it was. I sort of attracted crazy things. And my life was unusual. I've had an unusual life. As I'm sitting in my dad's house, I'm thinking, what an odd life. My dad's a painter, an artist. My mother's a dancer. I grew up in this kind of creative little enclave of their house in DC, which was very, at that time, you got your George Bush haircut and your penny loafers and you work at the government. So there was not like creative stuff fostered. And I had a stalker when I was a kid. That lady thought she was my mother. And then there was that dude at the Boston who thought he was my dad. That was the Puerto Rican guy who fell asleep in the back. He used to sleep in the back of the club. He's always like, I'm DC Benny's dad. I'm DC Benny's dad. And people come like, yo, your dad borrowed $20 from me. I'm like, it's not my dad. It's not my dad, dude. That dude's 4'1".
Yeah.
But I always took these, I always tried to just absorb what was around me, like just these, and New York was just so rich for that, it's like you can, if you fine tune your comedic little spidey senses, there's so much going on. And I'd always try and be in the thick of it, and also coming from like starting in black clubs and being the white guy, I always had to bring the concentrate. There wasn't time to, how did Dean Edwards say it? He said, there wasn't time for exposition.
I was agree. That is so. There wasn't time for exposition. That is so the Boston too. It's like
it was the Boston too.
Let's not get too deep into it. Where's the joke?
But man, it's just it took me a really, really, really long time to get my voice going, and now I feel like it's finally there where I can talk about shit in my life. But it used to be I was just doing these really characters and then observations with the characters. And now it's like the full narrative, which really came from, when I go back to it, it was always my friends would be like, tell me that story about, X thing that happened. And I'd tell them, and I'd always want to be able to put that on stage, but I didn't know how to do it. And now I feel like I figured it out, so that's that kind of evolution, I guess.
Were you an only child?
No, I got two brothers. One brother's is a U.S. Marshal in where's he now? Columbia. He's living in Columbia, and the other one is in L.A. He designs cars and stuff like that, and he's really talented, man. He does, and he's funny. He actually came and told the story. The only time he'd ever been on stage. I'm like, dude, you got to tell that story about the next door neighbors when we stole. They had a Jesus sign, and it said "Joy the Colvins," and it was a dove like flying with it was this huge sign on their porch. And he got drunk one night and took it and balled it up in our house. And then afterwards he returned it and came out of the closet. And it was just like this crazy story. But he was funny dude, real tight with him. And but I was the only child for a long stretch. And so I was really,
Oh, are they younger?
Yeah, they're younger. Yeah. I'm
really? So your brothers must be what, 40s?
Yeah, I think the one is just turning 40. Yeah, the other guy's like, he's like 45, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Those are, it's and then you have kids, right? You have kids?
I have 2 kids. Yeah, you decided not to have kids, but that was like a decision you had right up front.
I did. I just never, and that was the thing when I met my wife, was that neither of us wanted kids. And everybody around us is like, that's going to change. That's going to change. But I like being an uncle. I grew up in this house. My mom had a dance studio built in this house. So there was always kids in this house. And she was always teaching dance to these kids. And I always wanted to, spend more time with my mom, but she was always, with these other kids. I feel like somehow that may have impacted me. I don't know. And then my wife's father was a gynecologist, so he'd always have these like vagina books open on the kitchen table, and she's like, "Okay, I don't want to have to go through that," But no, I'm chilling being an uncle. I love my nieces and nephews and cooling with them, and I get to be a little selfish with my time, and my wife and myself, our relationship with each other is one that we put everything into. So we derive, I guess, the pleasure that a lot of people have from children. We're each other's spouse and each other's kids, kind of. I don't know if that's funny.
Oh, that's the coolest thing I've ever fucking heard.
It's a good deal. I'm glad I found someone else who's on the same page. And I don't know what the right decision is or whatever, but it suits us.
Yeah, I think more people should pay attention to that in their head of what they really want. I mean, I'll be very candid. I didn't think through having kids. I just was like, hey, you want to do this? And I didn't think like, and I wish I had, maybe I wish I had, and I'm very happy with everywhere where my life went. But it would have been interesting if someone said, hey, just give you a heads up, you're a super selfish person and you're also very driven and you're going to disappear from their lives for the first 16 years. You're going to be gone touring. And like, hey, maybe how's this going to affect everyone? And it worked out fine, but man, I have huge regrets with as hard as I worked from when I was at Travel Channel. I wouldn't change anything, but I am envious of Bill, who's having kids now and doing shit I never could have done. When we do our podcast, and I think you're going to come on soon, right?
I hope so. I mean, but this is, I'm happy that you found a little time for me, bro.
Oh, dude. I as soon as I saw your special, I started listening to it and I called and I was like, I got to get DC on. But I'm jealous, and I think is the right word, of like Bill's commitment to his family. Like I didn't have that when I was younger. I didn't have the opportunity to have it. I didn't, like, Bill just will go, all right, podcast is over. I got to go my daughter's waking up. And he literally will stop the pod. And when I was younger, I was like, no, my daughter's waking up. I need this opportunity to try to make some money. And so I didn't have that insight. And I look at Bill and Segura and Rogan. I mean, Rogan, I remember one time we were talking on his podcast and he was like, I said, yeah, I got to get home. My wife's out of town. And he's like, what are you working for? I was like, what? He was like, you shouldn't be even doing the podcast. You should be home with the girls. And I remember going like, oh, that's not my life. Like my life is like, I got to work all the time. He's like, man, when my wife goes out of town, I shut it down. No work. I'm with my daughters 24 hours a day. And in my head, I'm like, first of all, I couldn't even fucking do that. I don't know who can do that. But second of all, I was like, yeah, I'm like, I work every chance I get. I'm sorry. I wish I could. I guess it's that early imprinting when you're a young father and you're going to read a book to your daughter and all you can think is, I got no fucking money. I got no direction. I got no career. I'm a loser. Stop reading this book. Write a joke. Write a fucking script. Come up with a pitch. And then I'm not in the moment. I'm just going like, I want to stop the book and go, you have no idea what a fucking piece of shit I am. Like, but.
Well, I think, but that's the nature of the beast with comedy. It's like, when you get, it's hard to feel like you're secure, because the checks stop coming. They often stop coming. You got a family, it's a tough decision to make. And I think later in life, Bill's blessed that later in life, he's set. And now you can really, you don't have to make those decisions. You can be like, nah, I'm not doing that gig. This is my daughter's birthday, whereas earlier on you got that mortgage to pay, you're going to be, it's a tough decision. You don't know when those checks stop. You don't know when every gig could be the last gig with this stuff. That's what it feels like anyway.
I remember calling Frosty. I was about to have Georgia and I had some money from doing television. And my accountant called me, or my business manager called me and said, hey, just so you know, after taxes, you're going to have no money. You're actually going to owe some money. So you got to start working. And I didn't, I'm about to have a kid. I'm about to have a kid. And so I was like, I'm going to take the month off and be there for my wife when she gives birth. And I was like, said to my wife, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. She was like, I called my dad. I remember my dad laughing at me and he was like, ha, ha, now you know what it's like to be a father, and just hung up. And I was like, what the fuck? And he just called me. He goes, you call Matt Frost and you say, I need to work. And Matt Frost put me to work starting June 7th on my daughter's, like the day after June 9th, I went on the road and I was on the road forever. I mean, I just like every week I got a chance. I was like, I got to make money. And it's no sob story. I'm fucking very happy. I would do it again the exact same way. I wanted to provide for everyone, but but I look at guys like yourself who went, that's not for me. Jen Kirkman is an LA comic, and she just at a very, very young age said, I don't want children. And I remember hearing that going, God, man, who says that?
Yeah.
Like, and then you become a father and you're like, oh, people who know who they are.
Yeah, well, it ain't for everybody, and you always have some regrets. I mean, I see all my friends' kids, all my friends' kids growing up, and I hang out with them and all that, and I never got to experience that. But man, I my wife and I are like this, dude. We chill together, and we hang out together all the time, and I love it. I love it. And we don't have the pressure of like, I don't know what it's like in LA, but in New York, the schools, like getting into the right school, and it's $40,000 each for this. And, for each kid and college and the competition. And then these other, and then the kids don't go out anymore. They're like this all the time. And when it's so different than my experience. I don't know how I'd be as a parent even, you know what I mean? I feel like,
I think you'd be a great. I think you'd be a great dad. I think you're a very great dad, but I'm basing that off of just the fact that I think you're fucking hilarious. Like,
oh shoot, dude. Well, I'm happy that we could reconnect a little bit and to see what's going on with you and all this stuff, man. I see you doing all this stuff. It's always great. I remember. The first Will Smith deal or whatever it was.
I'm gonna say this very candidly. I remember Barry Katz said to me, it was on a Friday night. It was the first Friday night spot I ever got. But I knew that room very well, and I knew that room and who worked that room. I can't remember the lineup. I remember Louis Schaefer was hosting, and I want to say, I wish I could remember, but some I want to say like fucking Karen Bergreen opened, and I remember Barry Katz said, I'll put you on wherever you want. And I said, because he was like, Will Smith's company's here, they want to take a look at you wherever you want. And I went, okay. And I looked at the lineup and I was like, I'll go up after Karen, thinking she'll set it up, I'll do good. And she had a rough spot. Whoever it was went first, had a rough spot, and you were next. And I rolled the dice. I go, okay, I know for a fact that DC is going to shake them out of this and light this room on fire, but I don't know if I can follow him. And I remember going, but I know that I might bomb right now. And I pivoted and I said, let DC go up. Can I go up after DC? And Barry's like, Papa, DC's a tough guy to follow. And I said, I know, but I think this room is dead. You went up and you literally punched them until they got to a point where they were like, all right, now we're ready. And I went up. I have no idea what I said on that stage. I'm sure it was Puerto Rican this, black guy that. Like, whatever I said, it fucking flowed through. And I remember just literally getting off going, I just rode DC's wave into a development deal. I just got onto the back of your wave, paddled in, stood up and was like, oh, went through, got out. And then I remember DC, they were like, hey, they want to come see you one more time. And I was like, well, hold on, you got to get DC.
That's like, it, man.
Do that again? You want me to do that twice? I get it once. Why can't I do it?
Oh, that's great. I never knew that. I never knew that. I had no idea. I was very, like, because I knew that room and I knew how everyone operated in that room and how people's sets could go and were affected in that room. And it was just a packed Saturday, Friday night. And they weren't ready. And I remember Barry Katz going, Papa, wherever you want to go up. And I was like, oh, I'll go second. And then it did not. I was like, no, can I go third? Fourth. But yeah, I want to leave some meat on the bone because when we talk on Bill Bert, I don't want to have to rehash everything else. But I'm dying to hear about your father being a painter. I want to talk more about your parents, and awesome.
and I can't wait to rehash a lot of these stories and hear Bill's take. But literally, Bill and I I want to say we said this on the podcast or we said this off the podcast. We're like, hey, DC's special is fucking amazing.
Oh, man. That means a lot, man. That means a lot, dude.
Man,
we did it with nothing, man. We just, we shot it. We just wanted it bare bones. There was this guy, Joe Arecchio, and a dude, Luke, and as I said, brokerage, can we shoot it there? And it's going to be black and white and we some bullshit lighting. I don't know how we want to be like Raging Bull, man, I'm happy that I'm happy for you guys, both of you guys' success, and I'm happy that you remembered me and are giving me a shout out like that. I mean, it's real cool. Man. A lot don't. I'm not going to mention any names, but a lot don't. So I appreciate it, man. Really.
Hey, listen, if the special was garbage, we wouldn't have said anything. You're the best, man. You are the best. You are, like, I'm telling you, it's just like we were saying, so many people came out to LA and copped Dane's style and then took it off and tried to do it. There are so many people, myself included, who watched you when I started and just our styles formed off of watching you. And I mean, I honestly, without a fucking doubt, I would never have gotten to be able to tell the Machine story if it wasn't for those nights at the Zinc Bar, because that you're holding to the line of like, this is not, you're not going up there to do bits. You're there for a story. So dig your heels in, tell the story. It's got to have a beginning, middle, and end. Get through your story, and you would go up with nothing and just start and tell a story and go, this is the energy we're having in this room. All right. Awesome. Our first comic tonight. It's got a great story. Put your hands together. And I'm telling you when I say this, without a fucking doubt. And I used to get litigious about it because so many people remember that room as you and Ben Bailey. And definitely. And I was like, I was there those first 3 weeks. I was there with DC. I was helping him fill the room. And I wanted to be like, you gotta understand, like, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was going to DC going, hey, I have a story about working out like in the basement of Barnes & Noble. And you're like, okay, hold on, slow down. Like, so it's so, I mean, I'm so grateful that I got to be in your wake for a minute and trail in and learn how to do stand-up. But your style and who you are as a comic is, and same as Tony Woods, is so influential on so many people. So, I mean,
well, I appreciate it, brother, man. And I look forward to talking to you guys, and I wish you the best. Thank you for the shout for my special, man. It means a lot, that I could just put it out there and have people see it, and have guys like you and Bill, kind of give it the thumbs up, You know, it means a lot. You know,
Amazing,
it could just sit on a shelf. That's really, you know, how it goes.
I'll tell you right now. I wonder if I've got it. Fuck, I don't think I have it. Let me hang on 1 second.
Yeah.
I got
What
it.
could it be? What could it be? Oh my God.
I'm being dead serious. When I used to hand these out at the Boston Comedy Club.
Oh shit, the flyer, dude.
When I used to hand these out, I remember I got put on this flyer because I got a deal with Will Smith, right?
That's the legendary flyer, man. With the big picture of Lewis in the middle. That's classic.
Louis Schaefer. And I got put on the bottom. And I remember Patrice being like, how the fuck did you get on the fucking flyer? How the fuck? I was like, Barry makes the flyer. I don't know, man. I can't tell you. And I'm being dead serious when I say this. I did not deserve to be on this flyer. My entire career was set to make sure that people would look at this flyer and go, oh, it makes sense that Bert Kreischer's on there. It makes sense.
Well, it sure does, man. It sure does.
And look, it's the smoking picture of you.
The smoking profile.
It's the smoking picture.
Oh, man.
But if you told me 20 fucking 2 years ago, I guess 22 years ago that, and I'm being serious, and I know you have to understand this, that the guy handing out the flyers would be doing a podcast and considered a peer of you, I would be like, shut the fuck up. I made it. I fucking made it. Like, I stuck through the business. I'm at, like, DC and I are like, we're shut the fuck up. So it really means a lot to be able to do a podcast with you, talk about that old shit, and then feel like I deserve my spot on the flyer. You deserve
it. You deserved it back then. You deserve it now. You're doing great work, and it's you always had your untakeable, undefinable style, and you just grew into it, man. And it's great to see, man. It's great to see you do your thing. Go out there, you take your shirt off, you hit them with the machine. They go nuts, man. I mean, it's great to see, bro. And I'm very happy for you. And this is a real nice way for me to start a rainy day, man. I really enjoy it.
Great.
You know,
we'll talk to you on Bill Bert soon. And and once again, congrats on the special. It's amazing, man.
Thank you, dude. I'll talk to you soon, man. Take care.
Awesome.
Be safe. All right.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, man.